Awesome. Welcome back to Foiling Week 2022 and our Foiling Week forums. I have a really special co-host and guest for this session. This session is called More Than a Game. It's about Olympic foiling, and it's like a kind of a negative title, Olympic foiling fallout, meaning what happens when you move to, half of the Olympic events just about in foiling, and maybe in LA 2028, 2/3 of the events foiling. How does that work in terms of participation? How does that work in terms of opportunities for different genders or young or older sailors? And also, how does it work for smaller nations to be able to compete with this newer equipment? Because we know that with Olympic classes, some of them have been around for a long time, so there's a lot of institution involved. So without further ado, I have my guest. Like I said, I have Nora Raskola from Finland to my left, a recent kite foiler. So hi, Nora. Thank you. And then we have Tara Pacheco. So Tara has been involved in Olympic sailing for quite a long time from Spain. And where am I reaching you right now, Tara?
Well, right now I'm in Denmark. Not participated at the Europeans, but helping one team, the Turkish team. So nice.
Fantastic. And we have Shahar Zabari. Shahar is an Olympic coach in Israel. And Shahar, where are we finding you?
Back home, just a training block, coaching the team. So we have the World Championship in October in Brest. So preparing for that.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Shahar. So let's get into it. Foiling hasn't been in the Olympic Games except for one class in Tokyo, which was the shift from the NACRA 17 class to hydrofoils. And I think the greatest thing about that move was that it was a mixed class. So first foiling class in the Olympics, and it's a female and a male on the same boat. Now going for 2024, there's a lot more opportunities, IQ foil and kite foil. So maybe let me start with Shahar as a coach for the foiling classes in kite foil and IQ foil. Does that, for smaller nations and younger sailors, does that open up a lot of opportunities versus the older Olympic classes?
I think like for windsurfing and kite surfing, it opened a lot of opportunities because those sports are really extreme, really attractive. So a lot of young sailors, a lot of young windsurfers or kite surfers. So for them, it opened up a great door to be an Olympic athlete one day. So yeah, I think it's really expensive. There is a lot of development, but from the other end, it gives a lot of opportunities, and a lot of young sailors are growing and going into that sport. So it's bringing more money into the sport. So hopefully, it can grow, and we can have more development in kite surfing and windsurfing.
And Israel has been historically super strong in windsurfing, and it continues to be through the youth ranks. Was that a difficult transition to go from the RSX in your Olympic sailing community to the IQ foil?
Not really, because windsurfing in Israel is really big, and all the young athletes or the young windsurfers or kite surfers, for them, the foil was the future, and they already start doing foiling, if it's wing, kite, windsurfing, whatever. So for them, once they change from windsurfing to foil windsurfing, you could straight see their smiles on their faces, and they were really happy with this change.
Awesome. And Nora, you're a recent addition to the foiling community, and having done, how many years were you campaigning for the Olympics in FX?
Well, yeah, I did FX for 2 Olympic campaigns, and now I then switched to the Formula Kite, and now I'm part of that foiling gang.
And what was the decision-making process for you? When that opportunity came up, did you see it immediately when men's and women's kite foiling got into the Olympics? Did you see that immediately as an opportunity for you?
I didn't see it immediately, but I somehow didn't notice it first, and I didn't think about it because it felt like so far away. It's still a board sport, and I've been doing skippering a boat. It has nothing to do with board sports. But once I realized this is actually an opportunity, looks so much fun. Like it's still racing, and I done some racing, so it's kind of cool. Why not try to combine my skills and do this instead now?
Cool. And Tara, in your career, I mean, you're a pretty decorated sailor, and now you're choosing to help out sailors. As far as the addition of foiling classes to the Olympics in Spain, is it a one of those things for your nation has to pick and choose which disciplines it puts its effort into because it is so expensive, like with the NACRA and equipment, maybe even the equipment in the IQ foil?
Well, that's a tricky question. I think sadly in Spain we still, or at least the Spanish Federation still believe that it's maybe not worth it, not the amount of money that you need to put into let's say the future, because definitely it's the future. But sadly, they're not willing to put the amount of effort and money that, for example, in my class, in NACRA 17, you'll need to put all the resources. But I'm happy that on the other hand, there are many IQ foilers, guide foilers that not before, like from the past, even though it was not an Olympic class, they were already. So I think just that the federation needs to step up now and see that definitely is the future and the way to go on the next years, and hoping and crossing fingers that they will support more and more and more all these new classes.
Yes, and you and I had a really great conversation about NACRA 17. The NACRA 17 is a tricky class because, like we saw, and Tara, we can refresh our memories as to some of the statistics. The medal, even though it wasn't foiling, the medal race and was won by a female helm, and even though there are a lot more female helms, we have a long way to go in that class. But it does give the opportunity to sail one of the highest performance boats, small boats in the world. And I guess my other question to you is the NACRA 17 kind of cursed because it's kind of a perfect pathway to professional hydrofoil sailing like GC32, America's Cup, SailGP. It's, those sailors from NACRA 17 are getting pulled into those professions, and hopefully because it's mixed, there are more women getting pulled into the professional end of the sport, but it's really expensive. So, I mean, is there a situation with the NACRA 17 where it's a perfect opportunity for male and female sailors, a perfect pathway, but it may not last the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as we spoke last time, I think the reason, I don't know exactly the reason why we don't have so many female skippers, but definitely I think, and I encourage female skippers to jump on the boat and at least try, even though I understand that it's an expensive boat, but it gives you a lot of knowledge and maybe obviously more opportunities that if you don't jump on this boat to go through professional sailing in where the future is leaning us, no? That is foiling boats in professional boats.
Now, Nora, when we were just talking about the NACRA 17, you made the choice to do foiling, the kite foiling. And was the NACRA 17 on your radar screen? And from Finland's side of things, we'll kind of stick with that thread of, yes, this is really expensive, but it's important for the development of top professionals. In Finland, what's the landscape of Olympic foil sailing, basically in kite foiling now and in NACRA sailing?
Well, it's a small country, but we have one NACRA 17, and they're pretty lonely, and I wish.
And they're excellent.
Yeah, they're really good, and I wish I could have been their training partner. And I didn't think about that, but it is quite expensive, and especially now where we're already like we were already a year into the next Olympic quad, then it felt like it was maybe like too difficult to get into that, and it is expensive class anyway. But it's still when you have already a team from our country, it's already good because then one when you only have one has the knowledge and it's easier for anyone to start. So
Yep.
that's very good.
Yeah, and we saw that in Denmark with Lynn and CP. Those programs, at least if you have one strong program that's doing really well, when other younger teams are ready to jump in, they have that institutional knowledge. Now, one of our talking points here, and we're going to keep going on the new classes. I guess this could be with anything. If you add a new event or a new class to the Olympics, the smaller countries have probably a harder time mobilizing. I talked to Ian Walker when he was head of the ROIA and the Olympic program in the UK about this when they voted in 2018 on some of these classes for 2024. And they, within weeks, they had training camps and outreach for sailors. And not every country has the ability like SailGB does to mobilize a new class. In my talking points, I'm asking, who does foiling leave behind? And Shahar, you've been playing around the Olympic game for a while. You have friends from all over the world, particularly with windsurfing. You get to see nations that only put in a windsurfer into the Olympics. Does adding these foiling classes, and particularly classes like the NACRA 17, and even adding kite foiling, even though it seems accessible, the equipment's expensive. Does the move to new classes in foiling leave some small nations behind?
I believe so, but like we all know now, we still don't know the effects or the side effects of this change, because at the moment everybody is so happy and everybody is so enjoying doing foiling. And like you said, for developing nations, smaller nations, like you said, in Israel, we don't, as a strategic move, we don't do NACRA because it's really expensive, and we do put a lot of effort and money in kite surfing and windsurfing. And yeah, so basically for now, for our nation, we use all the resources that we can to develop and to use basically that change, and to jump on that train and to move together with the world, and to use that step and try to get a lot of knowledge about foiling and about how fast you can go, and about basically all the small tuning that everybody does. But that costs a lot of money, and if you are just an individual or a small country, so it's really hard to buy all that equipment and to do that research, to do that basically to try and analyze all that knowledge. So yeah, I believe in the near future we will see few nations like dropping out, because this sport is getting basically like Formula One, really expensive.
Right, and I understand that here at Foiling Week. I mean, it's a little bit of a curse to be all about advancement. I mean, the reason why we're here in Foiling Week is because people have put a lot of time, money, and sweat and tears and brain power into developing hydrofoiling into a lot of different spaces. It's so exciting still to me to see smaller craft in the Olympics, and hydrofoiling is making that more exciting, like Shahar was saying, in terms of the attractiveness. Tara, I have an interesting question for you. Is it okay that the Olympic slate of events and equipment is such that, to supply a full slate of athletes for the event, it's just too expensive and too difficult for a lot of nations? Is it okay to do that? Or do you think that in a perfect world, the Olympic slate would be one design, half foiling, half not foiling, but super inexpensive boats that most nations can field a team for?
Well, I'm gonna ask you. I don't know if I'm I'm gonna answer that question, but I'm gonna put on the table not that we were saying that it's expensive. I mean, Nacra, I guess, is expensive. If you want to be on the top, but one of the biggest problem at the end is that you need to settle with another person.
Right.
And I mean, at the end, there are boats that are secondhand that are reachable. And I have to say that at the moment, I will think that it's way better to buy a second-hand boat that the team before has made all the job, because definitely the boat is not set up for sailing once you buy brand new. That could be the case for IQ or kite foiling, but definitely on the Nagra with all the systems, the boat it's far from being ready from brand new. But I think the big issue for a new team from, let's say, not developed countries or not the Europe countries, not that maybe has a bit of more difficult time to join on the racing, is the partner. How to find a partner and how to. I mean, the Nacre is really exhausting and physical boat if you want to crew, and I think bring up the girls as crewing, as being, let's say, the machine of the boat. It's like really, really, really tough. Like a lot of injuries you need to go through before you reach a level, and I think that will be, I would say, the main issue if you want to start. How to build up the team and how you can put hours into that. Later on, to do all the research and how to be, let's say, top 15 or top 10, I think that should be another question. But how to make a program on make a mixed team, and that team focus on, let's say, 2 year time, that will be the least to have a reasonable level. I think that would be the question to answer.
Yeah, and I didn't think about that in terms of smaller nations, but of course, it's not just it's just not all the events are one person, and that brings up a great point. This is what I wanted to talk to you. I didn't have it on the talking points, but we have a really great little spread here. We have a Scandinavian country, we have Spain, and we have Israel. I'm from the United States, so maybe I can chime in on this too, which is I think that one of the greatest things about foiling is that all the different disciplines, I talked to Nora about this the other day, all the different disciplines in foiling contribute to each other, meaning that if you go wing foiling or surf foiling, it's not a bad thing for a NACRA 17 crew who's learning how to control the ride height, just because when you're winging and foil surfing, it's all about, pitch control is all about the human body, and it's the same thing with the NACRA crew, and same thing with trimming between moth and catamarans and all these disciplines. So my question to you, and this is an opportunity to learn about these different parts of the world, is are the foiling communities outside of racing growing in your countries and where you live and your local spots? And is that a sign that could be a pool, like Tara said, for the crews and stuff as those communities grow? So maybe Shahar, what's the foiling community like on your beaches in Israel?
Yeah, so like Tara said, I think the main issue especially for Israel as a small country is to find the right partner. So for us, like it's like a big community. Everybody go wing foiling, everybody go surf foiling, everybody go windsurfing, foiling, of course, kite foiling. So it's all about the individual foiling sports now. And yeah, like you said, in the end, time on the water, hours, you put in the hours in the water on foiling. It doesn't matter which foil it is. It helps to learn the feeling, to learn how to foil. And of course, after, it helps also with the bigger boats or with the moth or with the nacra. So yeah, for us in Israel, it's a big community of wing and kite and the wind foil. But we do see some of the people are starting to go with the foiling boats, but it's still very, very minor behavior. Everybody's on the opposite side, coming more towards individual sports.
Right. And what we're also seeing too is the influence of the beach sports on the sailors. I've talked to a lot of Olympic sailors who are, we're at regattas around the world. And when they're not tuning their boats, they're like, so what kind of wing did you get? And where have you been riding? So what's the scene like in Finland? Or have you, now that you've started kite foiling for an Olympic campaign, have you tapped into a community that is really, stoked on foiling that existed in Finland? Is it growing?
It's a community a foiling community that's growing, especially I think with the wing foil has made it more accessible for pretty much anyone to do it, like sailors, fighters, wingers. It kind of collects everyone to do what they like, or the new cool thing, which is foiling. And then there's the wing foiling kind of gives you opportunities to then move to these different classes. For example, why not, a foiling boat or kite foil or anything. Like I started with the wing foil myself, and I believe quite many others have started their foiling journey or foiling with the wing foil.
Yeah, it sounds like a gateway drug.
Yeah, I don't know. How did you start?
Yeah, like Nora said, everybody wants to do wing because it's also really easy to pack your stuff and to go around doing Olympic campaign and carry your wing with you. And this is, I believe, will be the next Olympic class, definitely, in the future.
Tara, how about in Spain? Is there, what's the crossover with people just ripping and riding waves, like Shahar said, and having fun? Do the Olympic sailors go down to the beach and say, man, I've been missing a little bit more fun in my foiling career?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like people is getting more and more. Like before, I live in Santander, and before it was a lot of people just surfing or doing windsurf, and now you just see wingings and kite foil surfing. You start to see as well, and I don't know, towing behind a rib and foil. Like everything is leaning to foil, but it's difficult to do it with a partner. It's these people have, I don't know, 2 hours free. They go rig the wingy or just take the rib out and do the sport. And for example, with the NACRA, it gets like too much board to have fun 2 hours. That I love sailing in the NACRA, believe me, but sometimes it's too much work to 2 hours sailing.
Yep. No, I understand. Well, hey, I was a moth sailor, and I would challenge you to have had a harder percentage than I had on boat work versus sailing.
Yeah.
But still, it was the most rewarding racing that I've ever done. So that was fantastic. Well, hey, I want to talk about another thing now that I have the three of you sequestered here. You can't go anywhere. Is that, I was that World Sailing meeting in 2018 was the first World Sailing meeting I went to, and they made some big decisions, and some of those decisions didn't stick, with the International Olympic Committee, with the vote on the mixed offshore event, and they didn't even talk about equipment at the time. But it was a very positive move for kite foiling and for IQ, so switching from the RSX. And what I saw there was a heavy makeup of former Olympic campaigners, athletes, medalists that were contributing. Torben Grail was there, multiple Olympic medalists. Joe Ali was there, multiple Olympic medalists from New Zealand, who actually, last time I saw her, she was bringing her wing foil to her coaching, which was really cool. And so my question for you is, we're talking about these issues, Shahar and Tara, you're heavily involved with coaching in your countries. And it's almost like you're working to a playbook created by World Sailing and the International Olympic Committee. Do you ever feel the urge to work with your MNAs, member nation authorities, and World Sailing to make some changes in either the Olympic pathway or the Olympic disciplines by volunteering for World Sailing? Maybe we'll start with Nora. Or are you too busy sailing?
I think, but definitely it would be maybe interesting to see more sailors that are still like involved or sailing themselves and doing an Olympic campaign to help develop or change whatever classes will be in the upcoming, like will be the Olympic classes. Of course, it's not easy, and there's already people doing that. But.
Right, and you bring up an awesome point. I mean, the fact there are already people doing that, you may have someone from your nation or from your class or your buddies from around the world who is on a board or a committee or a commission at World Sailing, who you can use that influence. I think some Olympic sailors don't realize that. Some sailors don't realize that they have advocates besides the, older presidents of their member nation authorities that they float ideas to and say, hey, let's, work in this direction. I have a little bit of time give to this. How about you, Tara? I mean, you're always advocating for the sailors and for yourself with great points of view. Do you ever have a thought to go work with either your member nation authority, or maybe you already are, or go work with World Sailing to talk about some of these ideas?
To be honest, I don't know who is the one in Spain that works together with the World Sailing, but definitely I believe that people is making decisions needs to be, let's say, I don't know if it makes sense on the playground.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense that you make decisions when you are inside a box on the office. So I think people that makes the decision need to get more involved on the playground, in the sailing community, in the actual sailing community, and not only in Olympic events or Olympic boats, that in every event or every, I don't know, I see a lot of, now have been in Valencia for the last week, and I see a lot of people like just on the beaches doing like small events about sailing, that with some wingies or some, and I think we need to look more further than Olympic sailing and see what actual the people want. But if you will not see that, if you're in a box,
right,
we need to see more further away. We need to go and see the actual playground.
Great, and I agree with you. It's broader than you think. Just like Mara said, it was not in her frame of view. She had a blind spot to kitefoiling and Olympic sailing. Shahar, you're from I guess I hope you're not offended if I do a small nation, and your sail teams are small, but there are much bigger nations that don't have nearly as many Olympic medals and world championships as your sailors have. What's been Israel's involvement with World Sailing? Are you personally present there? Are you involved with people from Israel who are trying to make positive change at World Sailing?
Not really, not in an active way, but yeah, we do have Mayan Davidovich, which is also Olympian in the past, so she's taking an active role in World Sailing. And of course, you have some more athletes from Olympic sailing from France and from Spain who are actually taking an active role. And basically, as an athlete, I was a bit like Noah. I was super focused and doing what I have to do and playing with a set of rules that World Sailing was applying. But now as a coach, like you said, I'm trying to see what errors, or like Tara was saying, they are making the decisions and they are sitting in their office in their box, and basically we are there in the playground. So I think it's really important that we actively move the knowledge to them and telling them, as a coach, we need to do that, we need to make those changes. And as they were athletes like us few years ago, so they listen and they hear, and then they feel more involved, and then they also feel the need to come to event, and they know also what to look for, because we as coaches, or I as a coach, I give them a bit of insights, and then it's easier for them to see the details. So as a coach, I think, or coaches, I think in general, we have a big role of changing the class and changing the Olympic sailing to give world sailing better insights, so they can give the athletes better service.
Fantastic. Yeah, that really wraps in what Tara was saying just about being in it. And so one of my last questions then is, and this is perfect, you talking about the young sailors. Nora, you have had a lot of campaigning under your belts. So have our other guests. With the knowledge you have now, we just spoke with, for back the bid for reinstating sailing into the Paralympic Games. We talked to 2 gold medalists and a silver medalist. And all of you know the struggle of that kind of pathway to the Olympics. And it's hard and it's disappointing sometimes, and it's super rewarding at other times. What advice do you give, and not to just to young foiling athletes, but what advice do you give to young sailors who are aiming for the heights that you all are aiming for? And what would you say to them right now with the knowledge that you have right now, with the introduction of foiling too, how that kind of cross training can keep you fresh?
Well, I think the only knowledge I could think of is to just dare to ask the sailors that are medaling and winning your class or in the top. Just ask them about all the questions and how they could help you. I think everyone is it's a community. Everyone's really friendly and nice to each other. So it's never wrong to ask people, just that. I don't know, have people been coming up to you, Tara, and asking hey, I was wondering what should I say or how should I approach this, for example. And you would probably just try to tell and help them as well as you can.
To be honest, I would love that people is less shy on asking and not be so embarrassed on asking stupid questions. Just put yourself there, and you don't need to be embarrassed on not knowing a new thing, It will be silly to not ask and try to learn, no? So
yeah, I have an opinion on that. And I think that events, that's one thing about Foiling Week. We're really lucky, right? We're not an Olympic trials type thing. We're not a European championship. And it's very open. The Moth's here, but this isn't their major championship. So everyone's very collaborative. And Nora's been testing out boats and seeing former campaigners that she's seen throughout her Olympic career. And I think that, just my little 2 cents on the Olympic side of things, that those events and those venues could have small components of more social interaction. I know it's hard. Everyone wants to get their rest and recovery. The level, that I see, I'm going to be in Denmark, Tara, so we'll get to see it together.
Yeah.
The level of this community is so high, the Olympic community, that it's kind of hard to sit down and relax with a bunch of people because there's always something to do. I know in Oman, when I was with Nora, we had this epic little thing where everyone was supposed to go out in the water, and then they stopped everyone on the ramp, and everyone was just standing around with nothing to do. So someone started playing some music, and everyone started hanging out in a much more relaxed fashion. But it was the only time that in a real championship, in a world championship, that everyone got to really hang out in a relaxed format. They were forced to.
Yeah.
They were stuck. So Shahar, what's your advice to young athletes aiming for the Olympics?
Just putting the hours in and enjoy on any foil board you have. Basically, that's the main issue with all of us, just spending time on the water and having fun and doing tricks and falling in the water.
Awesome. That's the one thing at Foiling Week we're really surprised about, in a way. It's like my blind spot with Foiling Week was I came in and everything was so technical. People were making technical papers. Andrew McDougall was just, talking about manufacturing a one design moth. and then of course racing is involved in that discussion, and then to see all these board sports happen, and then to see an Olympic coach like Shahar saying, put the hours in, but also go play, with hydrofoil disciplines too, and Tara's comment about let's just don't be afraid to ask questions, just like what Nora's saying. That goes from this close team competition ethos, that is what a lot of successful people and what we've all learned, to a more collaborative ethos and methodology, which I think foiling doesn't develop, and foiling sports skills, especially new classes, don't develop in a bubble. I think, would you agree, Tara, that like with your NACRA 17 sailing, that if you just sailed against your Spanish teammates and just listened to the Spanish coaches, do you think you would succeed on an international level?
No.
Well, I don't want to put your coaches down.
No. It's just sadly we don't have too much big knowledge. But for example, I just wanted to say that we were lucky last campaign to have Kyle on our side, Kyle Langford, next to training with Cinema as well, and I mean, I just want to say that he was telling us a lot. Like, I mean, don't be afraid on ask questions. So be happy to be. He was telling us a lot. Like, fuck you, you're a fucking lemon, So don't be afraid of being a lemon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's right. It's it's super humbling. I mean, I met Nora last fall in Oman, and she was just getting into kite foiling, and you said it was pretty humbling at the time, but the community of kite foilers, they've really welcomed you in, haven't they?
Yeah, they have welcomed me very well. It is kind of a different. I feel like they're more like this their surfer lifestyle, the kiters. But now when they're coming into this Olympic sailing, it's gonna be more like Olympic sailing, but still really like a nice community. Everybody's super nice to each other and helpful. And I think that has helped my development a lot in the class. But I just wanted to mention also like, I think foiling has brought, I see at least for me, changing from the skiff, which is a fun class, but still I think foiling is a different kind of fun. It is a lot of fun. And for example, I believe, as Sahara was saying also in the IQ foil, you can see everyone is so happy to go out and train and like go and just foil. And the same like I see in kiting, that everyone is just like so happy to go and play around and jump and things, like not just the training, but like making more fun. So you could just be like, oh, just take my stuff and go and sit foil or kite in the morning or in the late afternoon, just because there's wind and it's fun. It's not just the pure training. And I think that's really cool.
And that's easy. I know we're biased here at Foiling Week, but it's easy, just like we say, froth on going out and sailing and not just playing, but tuning. But I know we're biased, but it's true. I see Shahar when he talks about the people on his local beach. I mean, it must be so much fun hanging out there with everyone in Israel. And I guess I wanted to close by saying, well, first of all, saying thank you to everyone. I really hope that Tara and Shahar, we get you here to Foiling Week. Next year is the 10-year anniversary. And for those of you who haven't been here on the shores of Lake Garda, it's spectacular. We had a 20 plus knot Paler down from the mountains this morning. It was sunny, 80 degrees. And since 6 o'clock this morning, it was blowing 20 knots. And it's just starting to lay down around lunchtime. And it's probably going to blow around 15 probably out of the opposite direction and about 85 degrees. So I'm telling you that so you can get excited and put it on your calendar for next year. And any closing thoughts, Shahar, on the foiling community and the Olympic sailing community and Israel sailing?
Basically, I think it's going in the right direction, and it's really nice to have this discussion. And thank you very much for having us. Thanks for hosting us.
Thank you, Shahar. And how about you, Tara? Closing thoughts?
Just hoping Foiling Week we have more people there hopefully me as well. And definitely, don't be afraid of beer lemon.
It's a great piece of advice. And Nora, my co-host here, what's your closing thoughts?
I would love to see Tara and Sahar here next year, and hopefully the kite floaters as well, because we would love to be part of this event.
Great. Yeah, and it's just really nice to have a mix of sailors and from different countries, from different disciplines. And yes, like Shahar said, it's an awesome conversation. So we're never going to stop talking about foiling in the Olympics, and it's great to get into the nitty-gritty with this. Thanks for being honest about it too. And that's it for this session. We have another one afterwards where we're going to be talking about multiple small foiling classes, how that, production classes, mostly sit-down boats, affects the demographic, the type of people that are coming into the sport. Does it open up the sport to new sailors? Is it a gateway drug to regular sit-down keelboat sailing? And is it cost effective or not? So we have a bunch of manufacturers. We even have Army Armstrong from Armstrong Foils just driving in momentarily and just flew in from New Zealand for this. So we have foils, we have boats, and we have people and manufacturers. So we're really excited. Tara, thank you so much from Denmark, even though you're Spanish. I'll see you in a couple days. Shahar
Thank
from
you.
Israel.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shahar, and thank you, Nora. So thanks, guys, and thank you for watching.
Thank you very much.
2022 forum, and we will find you after lunchtime here in Lago de Garda. Ciao, everyone.